everyone, happy Monday. I'm really excited to be with you on another Monday of the Other Side podcast. If this is your first time with me, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat just so I can shout you out. I love to always say hello to the first timers. But if you have been with me before, if you are on the journey with me together, this mental health journey that we are in this thing called life, go ahead and put a 2 in the chat. I want to shout you out as well, all my returnees. And so I'm really excited about today because today isn't like many of our other episodes where it's just me kind of figuring things out and sharing things that I've learned with you guys. Today, I'm actually going to be in conversation with somebody, and we're going to have a great conversation. So I'm super excited. Adam, too. Welcome back, Adam. Good to see you. So we're really excited because today's topic is something many of you know. I am an author myself. I help people write books and things of that nature. And so the topic of turning life into fiction came up. And I have with me today someone who I think is like the best person to answer the question of how can you turn your life into fiction? What is that like? What do we need to know? What are some tips? All of those things. Please, everybody, I'm super excited to have on the show today. She is an author. She is a TikTok podcast host. She's a bestie. She's a photographer, an explorer. I mean, a woman of so many talents, and I'm truly excited to have her on the show with us. Everybody, please help me welcome Julia Hart.
Here is part of the other series. We just did a 2-hour live. We're animals.
Yeah.
It's funny to watch yourself look so fabulous. I'm like, wow, I rock. It doesn't feel that way like on a daily. It's just like,
you just need to play that in the background like all the time. Like,
especially that's me. Music. There's some beats in that music. It's very good.
Right. To like build up the suspense. I know. Oh man, well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I am thrilled to have you on the show with us, to have this conversation with you. Mm-hmm. For folks who aren't familiar with you, believe me, I have all the things down in the description below. So that way you can buy Julia's book, find her on social media, go on her website, all of the different things. But please tell folks a little bit about who you are as an author, and kind of what led you to even thinking, I think I'm going to actually write a story based on my life.
You know, who I am as an author is a very shallow dish because I just became an author. I've never aspired. It's weird because I also, as you know, I also interview a lot of authors. And one of the first questions I often ask them is, how long have you been an author? Or when did you start writing? And it's like, oh, like in 2nd grade or 5th grade. I started writing like 3 years ago. So I don't have a big history of being a writer. I grew up extremely dyslexic, very neurodivergent. I spent my entire life counting all the kids in my class to know which paragraph I would have to read out loud because it was debilitating for me. It just anything that had to do with writing was just not my thing. So and I've never been a big reader for that thing also because it's just like, gosh, it would take me 3 months to read a book. So then audiobooks came out and then suddenly, and so that's my author background as far as complicated it was for me, that just the relationship with it. Then I think as a lot of people will say, well, let's back up. So I think I've always wanted to write a book. And I think back maybe like 2001 or something, I just gotten back from living in Mexico City for 3 years. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write my book. I had all these pictures and I was going to start like each chapter with just a photograph and define what was going on in that photo at that time of my life. And I got it all up on the wall. Visual person. And it just never happened. And that just scrolls back to, I couldn't write. I didn't know how to write and stuff like that. So, you know, I was always noodling it, you know, and then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, I happened to have been given the great fortune of, and I had just before that invited my ex-husband to come live with myself and my roommate for a month or so he could get on his feet in Colorado. And the minute he walked in the door, shortly after that, we went into lockdown. And so there I was living with my ex-husband for 5 months. And that bright idea, I had given him my room. I had an office. So I was living basically in my office. And
Wow.
at that time, before that, I always read a lot of historical fiction. But even historical fiction is around a rather serious subject. And my psychological plate was very full. You know, I had suffered with post-traumatic stress disorder probably since I was 3. I have cumulative, it's been going on forever. And luckily, as I got more into my later 40s, I figured out the plate thing. I was like, okay, I'm emotionally taxed. I can't put more emotions on top of this, even if I know it's going to end well. I can't make it through the middle. I couldn't live through a dark days of the soul during COVID. So I switched out of that and into more romance, not spicy romance, but I just really wanted somebody to tell me a nice story. Did not know, because I didn't read much, was that all stories have, you know, the hero's journey or the right.
Yeah.
But I was listening to these books, kind of lower spice, just kind of clean romance. I was like, oh, wow. It almost felt like a roller coaster, right? It's like fun, what pushes a person into deciding I've got to change, making the wrong choice instead of the, you know, and just in the dark days of the soul, da, da, da. And I was like, you know, my story, not my whole life story, but that one story kind of already felt like it did that rhythm. And in my brain, I could organize it like, oh, yeah, that's when things got weird. And I thought maybe I should. And then I realized I shouldn't have. But, you know, and it was just. And so I was like, I went to my ex-husband, who happened to have been an author, but he wrote nonfiction.
Okay.
But I went to him and I said, do you think I could write a book? And he was like, sure you can. He was very encouraging, but he knew what I was dealing with.
Yeah.
And he's not one to just say, yeah, you go for it, girl. But he was like, yeah, I think you could. I think you can. It's going to be hard, but you can. And so I sat down and I was literally writing and Googling, what's a 3-act structure? What are tropes? I didn't know what anything was.
Right. Well, that was my next question for you, because, okay, so hearing that, like, the title of an author even feels like super new to you. You're like, like, this isn't like, always been my identity or like the way that I see myself. Yeah. And so you said a number of things already that many authors have heard. It's things that I coach my clients about, right? Like, what is the structure of a story? One of the easier to remember structures, you mentioned it, right? The hero's journey is one of them. And even that, tropes, how do you figure out a character arc? Like, what is that even, right? Like, how do you create plot twists, right? Like, all of these different things. I know that I'm walking my clients through what that looks like and the structure of that. So how did you, was it just Google? Like, who was helping you through this? Was it your ex-husband?
Well, okay, so I was reading a book called Beach Read by Emily Henry. It's like, in the romance world, it's a very popular book. And in that book, she and the love interest are both authors, but it's like enemies to lovers. And they were both kind of burnout authors. And they decided, you know, he was like, anybody can write a romance. And she's like, anybody can write circle jerk, you know, men's fiction. And so they decided to swap genres. And some of the topics came up a lot. This is the promise of the premise. This is this. And they were going on these fake dates, but they were actually teaching each other about each other's genre. So on her, like, this is what romance is. They went cowboy dancing. On his, this is how you look for, like, investigate a serious book. He took her on this. He was doing a book about a cult that had like basically a Waco type situation where the whole thing ended up burning down to the ground. And that when it was like, okay, so they're telling me all these things that I don't know what they are, but I could look. And there's a cult in this book as kind of a subplot. And in my book, the cult is kind of an actual character almost, because it was, you know, part of my life. So it just all the things, you know, it's it's that divine spark, the muse, whatever you call it. It was just dripping off the ceiling, and it was just, could I catch it fast enough?
Mm-hmm.
And it just, one thing kind of led to another. I ended up on a woman's website called, her name is Alessandra Torre, and she's a romance author, I think kind of a spicy author.
Mm.
Does everybody know what I mean by spicy? I'm like, right, how many chili peppers? I think she's a spicy author, but she was kind of transitioning from pure romance to thriller romance.
So this is a genre. It's thriller romance or thrillmance, thriller romance.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know if there's a sniglet for it, you know, but yeah, psychological thrillers that are also have a romantic thing. So she had a website because she was independent. I think she had been at one time, she had gone trad publishing, and then she just didn't like it. She was used to making all her own decisions and, you know, pushing the envelope a little bit. And once you go into trad publishing, you're like, you can't do anything. So I didn't really like it, but she had a website and all this stuff. And then she was doing conferences, and you could, you know, you could pay a certain amount and log in and see all these other indie publishers talking about the things that they were doing. And really helped a lot. 10 out of 10, worth the money.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing and really good to know. So quick plug. We are doing a virtual book tour summit. It's happening next Monday, October 28th. I've also put that information in the description below, where Julia is going to be one of 5 featured authors who are going to be talking about their experience, what they learned, how they wrote the book, their inspiration, etc. So please come out and join us. If you're enjoying the conversation you're having with Julia today, you got to come back next Monday and join us for that and meet some of the other authors. She just said it. These types of events are totally worth it. And this one's for free. The virtual book tour summit we're doing on Monday is for free. So definitely come out and do that. So anyway, that's a quick plug for that. But yes, I love that you mentioned.
Somebody always says something that you're like, right? Even if that's only one thing, it is one thing that could save your book, save you time, save everything.
It's worth it. Yeah, totally worth it. Especially the time bit. So I know there's somebody out there who's listening to this who caught the cult and like the fact that it's loosely based on your life. And they're like, wait, what? So without giving too much away, would you mind sharing a little bit about that, or at least maybe more about your life, and then what you would like to hint at in terms of the book?
Yes. So interesting. Like, one of the things I think that everybody needs to learn as an author is how to talk about their book without spoiling it. And the fine art that I'm not sure I've gotten to yet, but yes. As I mentioned, I had post-traumatic stress disorder. That doesn't necessarily just happen to you. Typically, there are things in your life that happen that trigger you into those things. I had about 50. And so by the time I was getting out of high school, I was already very anxious, to the point to where I was passing out every day. I would have an attack either in my house, out of doors, in the grocery store. I would wake up with the EMS on top of me. I'd wake up shower, passed out. I had to sit down to take showers. I mean, my life had gotten to a point to where I was ready to end it.
Oh, wow.
Like, I'm done. There's no way that death could be as bad as my life right now. And I was so young. By this time, I had also kind of walked away from my family. They didn't understand me. I was just in that angsty, PMS-y, anxiety. And sometimes when you expect your family to be able to know what you're talking about, and they don't, you feel doubly hurt, especially at that age. You don't understand that you're making assumptions about them, that they're keeping this view of you, kind of a film that they're used to you being 11 and now you're 18, and they don't know how to deal with 18-year-old you because they're still thinking when you was 11. And we were not seeing eye to eye. And so I left. I went to live in Denver, and it just kept going downhill, just sliding downhill. I could not get a grasp on just basic reality. I was like drinking a case of Dr. Pepper a day. That could have been problem number one. And I was smoking more cigarettes than, a normal person. And so I was just in a bad place.
Mm-hmm.
There was no one was coming for me, right? There was no rescue. And I met this guy who worked where I worked, and he was talking about this guy who was helping him. And I ended up at that guy's house, on that guy's door, passed out, the whole thing, right? And so it turns out that, yeah, that guy he was a cult, and none of us knew it. The 25 of us that were there did not know we were in a cult. And at one point he said, you younger girls could make a lot more money if you were dancing at the local strip club than you could if you were cleaning houses. And we were like, and I was like, yes, that's a great idea. I mean, there was always a part of me that wanted to be an entertainer, wanted to be, I was all kinds of sparkle, and I was just like, yes, let's do it, And so, yeah, I went into the script, 9 of us. Unbeknownst to me, they're already calling us the cult girls within a week. I have no idea. I see this guy, he likes me, I like him, we're young. And he likes me. And I mean, a lot of guys in a strip club will like you, but they're about money. And this guy was about, he really liked me, cared about me as a person. And he started rumors, and he was like, what's up with this chick? And can I help? And I just had to learn how to, trust and everything. And so, yeah, the book is about a stripper in a cult and how she gets out.
Well, then,
it's a romantic comedy. It's a low spice romantic comedy.
That's the book right there, The Jewels of January. Again, it's in the description. Please go and get the book immediately, because I know I heard that and I was like, where can I get this book?
Kind of great. I think I was lucky enough to by the time I got the idea to write the book, I had done a lot of work on myself, right? A lot of new age work, a lot of Christian work, a lot, all the work. And by the time I was like, I'm going to write a book, it wasn't a scathing memoir about how this guy had screwed me over for 5 years. It was more about the love story between me and this guy, the love story between me and the club, and all of the people in there that helped me. The love story between me and some of the other people in the cult. And so all the people that are in the book have gotten out. I didn't put anybody in there except the main protagonist, the cult leader, the guy. He's in there, but none of the other people. There's still 5 people in there.
Oh.
This all happened in 1991. So.
Well, that was a long time ago, yeah.
So,
well, really quickly, I just want to shout out Bren, because she said genius. She thinks that the idea for your book is genius.
It's that idea, right? That it's not happening to you, it's happening for you.
For you.
All the research of what it was like to be in Austin, Texas, in a strip club in 1991, and in a cult. The research that I have to do to pull that off, but no, it was all in here. Into my heart.
Some people have to do research, and some people don't have to go far.
Right.
Well, okay, so this is really then critical, because as an author, I have 2 fellow authors who are actually on right now. Shout out to Adam and Bren again. What are some tips? What are some things that you recognize that you feel like would be helpful to tell other authors who might be also using their story using their life, and basing the story that they're writing now on that? What are some, I don't know, just some thoughts, some tips that you would give?
I would say, if you are going to really write something that's semi-autobiographical, right? Meaning that you and the people in it are all going to be real, and people know that it's going to be real. I think part of the trick to that is it's almost impossible to write it verbatim. You have to give up some of the story for that poetic license, and know that sometimes you might not get the actual data correct, but you can still extract the feeling that you were going through. And so that was the hardest thing for me. I'm like, but it didn't happen that way. And my developmental editor was like, yes, but who's going to know? And then I was like, these other 15 people that are in the book, that are going to read it.
Right.
And so it was just, yeah, and especially the cult, the girls that are in the book that were in the club and things like that, those people that were going to read the book, they probably wouldn't be as nitpicky about the like, no, no, that didn't happen. But like the people in the cult, you have to treat that whole scenario very lovingly because they lived through it too. They are walking around with their own
Mm,
traumas because of that. Some of them we share
mm,
a bonding, but you don't want to step on something
mhm,
that they might be going through. So, yeah, it's a trick, but you don't lose the effect by not sticking to exactly the story. And
mm.
I would say that's kind of my best advice is let go just a little bit so that you can make the point more effectively.
I love that. Bren also loves that. And when you said extract the feeling of it, I
Hmm.
think that's really, really helpful. And letting go of the need for it to be exact.
Yes.
And that, to your point, you're just trying to get the feeling of it so that way you can illustrate whatever the point is that you're trying to get
Right.
across.
Get that emotion to get people to
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in your own retelling of the story, they might not feel that, but
That's also true. I can relate to that. Mine is much more memoir, my book.
hmm.
But there were some things like even like my mom would read it and she was like, "That's how that occurred for you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You don't remember?" And I was like, "No."
Right.
So like even something like that, it's never really going to be exactly as it
Right.
was. It's how I recalled it, right? So to your point, all these other people might be experiencing same events, but
Yeah.
then but just
Right.
experiencing it differently.
Yeah.
And that's a really big thing to consider. And also like it's very freeing, I feel like,
Hmm.
because then you don't feel like beholden to like make sure that it's exact because you're like, well, actually, this is based on, so it doesn't have to be.
Right. But there are like 80% of the people in my book, including so the waitress in my book wanted to become an actress. I think I told you this. No, and she did. She is now a very, very famous movie star, and she worked in that club with us the
I
entire.
did tell a couple of people about that and they were like, "What?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to say the famous?"
I think I could say her name. I'm always careful about trying. I don't want people to go, oh, you were bringing up her all the time so you could sell your book.
Okay.
Does that
Okay.
make But it's Googleable. Just go Austin, Texas, strip club waitress, famous movie star. You will find it.
The actor will
Every
pop
time
up.
she does a movie now, it becomes part of the ethos of the tour, and
Mm,
it comes up all the time. So, and even when she was there and people would offer her money to
mm,
dance, and she'd be like, sorry, I have a different goal in mind. And if I did that, it would jeopardize that. And I'm a
mm.
waitress. Would you like a drink? Cute
Ah,
is a,
it is of itself. I'm working with another author who um, also has insight into that world, and we talked about this idea of women who go into the club with a goal,
Mhm.
like I'm doing this to get X amount of dollars, or or it's school, right? Like
Right.
it's however money is necessary to just pay for school or to pay for the kids,
Right.
XYZ, and then I'm out. And how many people actually stick to that goal versus end up just staying because the money is really good?
Mhm.
There's a whole other conversation, but it's a remind. Sorry, it just reminds me of that, right? Like there's so much that people want to know. It's like it's like this world that's really taboo, but people are really interested to
Curious
know
about
some of the
yeah.
behind the scenes.
I thought that it would be really sketchy to write a book about a stripper, but I couldn't believe like all my friends that weren't strippers were just like, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
This really? I didn't think it
Yes.
was when I was living through it, it wasn't that fascinating.
Right. But now all of a sudden it is. I
Uh,
love that.
right.
All right. Well, as we're wrapping up here, I would love to know about, okay, so this is like the inspiration. Again, please, please, please go buy the book so that way you can read it. And then also, please leave a review. Don't forget to do
Oh,
that. Leave a
yes,
review. Please leave a review.
please.
um, but speaking of that part of it, Talk to us a little bit about what it's like to market a book, what it's like to, now you've written it, which is, by God, I think honestly, like the hardest part is just get it out of your head.
Right.
But now it's out there, right? You've birthed this thing and now you're trying to get more people interested in reading it. So what was that process like for you? Did you have beta readers for example?
No, at that time I didn't know what beta reader. I hadn't Googled that yet. So I finished the manuscript, and that would be my other advice. Just finish the book as fast as you can. Don't keep going back and tweaking the book. Just get it all out and then start tweaking it, because you'll just keep writing yourself into a hole. But yes, once I finished the book, and I knew it had legs, but I knew that I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I got very expensive professional help.
Okay.
I do think it was worth it. In my head, if I never write again, that was an expense. If I keep writing, it was an education.
Sure.
I did learn a lot from her.
Yeah.
I really did. Sensitivity wise, there were a lot of things that I just didn't know weren't things that you could really say anymore. There was just a lot of things. What was the question? Oh, marketing.
Yes. What was it like to now get the book out?
There is no deeper pit of hell than marketing, in my opinion. I think, and mostly because I'm bootstrapping it, right? I've already paid all the monies to make the book, so I've got no monies left. When I first came in and finished my book, at that time, actually right before, maybe 3 months before I finished, TikTok was still the place where you could go and probably go viral and probably get pretty good traction. But sadly, TikTok opened their own store, and now if you are an author or I went from getting thousands of views a day to getting 250 to 300. And it's just it's so hard. So yeah, if you have the marketing is a whole other beast. That as hard as writing a book is, marketing is probably just as hard. It is a different talent. It takes a different part of your brain, and sometimes it's going to take guts, because you're going to have to be an idiot on different platforms. Put yourself out there. Be as authentic as you can. Find a workaround. Do the things. Especially, I feel bad for people that are like using a pen name and they're trying to market something as a ghost. It's very, very difficult. But don't let that stop you, right? Marketing and advertising is something that comes and goes, and new things come up, and ride the wave. If you have that book, even if it sits on the shelf for 2 years and you keep writing other books, and then one day you go, I'm going to remark. You can pull the cover off that if it's yours. You can put another cover. You can change the back if you're not doing great. If you think your blurb sucks, write another blurb. You can test market things right there on Amazon, because you can publish it, every 10 days basically. So there's a lot of leeway, and there's always Google, and now there's Chat GPT. You could literally, I've got $1,000. What's the best way to do this? Break it down in steps for me, please. And see what it says, because it's going to come up with things that I've never thought of. And, so yeah, marketing is a beast that I can't give a lot of advice to, because I haven't figured it out.
So I love that. And thank you for that. You said you went the expensive route. I have told people that it is anywhere from, you're looking at spending anywhere between $2,000 to $5,000. Is that accurate?
I spent $8,000.
Okay. I was thinking it might actually be closer to 10, because I've been doing more research now, and I'm like, ooh, this is more than I thought. Okay.
I was like 98,000 words times 5 cents or 3 cents or whatever it is.
Right.
So yeah, it was $3,000 for the developmental, and then I went back to her for the copyright.
Okay.
And for the copy line edit. So those together were 6,000. Plus, I didn't have Word. I didn't have, my computer died in the middle of it, because Macs work forever, but not all the companies that work with Mac will continue to update their thing. And I couldn't use Word anymore on there, and I didn't know you could go to Word on the internet. So I went and bought a new Mac, and it's okay because my old Mac still works perfectly except for Word. So now,
Oh,
but yeah, there were just incidental, things, Canva, all the things that you are going to need to, format your book, design a cover if you'd like. It cost me $400 for the blurb because, believe it or not, you can write a whole book and get to the back cover and you cannot spit out 120 words
oh, you're trying, yeah, and you're like, oh, I'm trying
book.
so hard.
Will go, oh my gosh, I've got to read this. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
that is a whole other skill also, of its.
Mm.
I always thought of writing a book almost like a triathlon.
Hmm.
Kind of break it into 3 stages: the writing, the editing, the marketing. But no, it's a full ass Olympic, right? You have to do 20,000 things.
Mm.
But it's fun, especially, and if you're lonely in it, go get on TikTok, go make author friends, go join groups, go be a part of it, because you will learn so much. Go follow me, I'll introduce you to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll meet so many people, you won't feel so alone. You'll get some great advice, you'll see some hacks, it'll help your brain be like, okay, we're all in this together.
Yeah. And we can do it. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, because I've often said that it's very isolating when you're writing the book. It is, or you feel isolated. So I love that. I know the two of us are working to create community around authorship, and so I highly, highly, highly recommend folks do that. Again, Julia, this has been amazing. The time flew by. I can't even believe that we've gotten to the 30-minute mark. So we're out of time. But please, 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 if you want to spend more time with Julia, we have a virtual book tour summit coming up. Oh, yeah. This is a flyer for it. It's Monday, October 28th. I'm going to go ahead and put the link for it as well. It is in the description, but I'm just putting it up here so you guys can see it and you know that there she is. You see your face.
Yes. Yep, there I am.
Please, please, please join us. We'd love to have you there. You can hear more from her as well as other authors, right? Getting in the community, learning from others as well is just as important as we've been talking about. This has been truly wonderful. Thank you so much for joining. Again, I'm going to put Julia's book here just in case you didn't get it. Again, it's down below in the description. Go get the book. The Jewels of January. You will not regret it, okay? Just from hearing your story alone, I am so thankful that you were inspired enough to take the little seed that you had and to actually put it out there into the world. We are better for it. And so thank you again so much. We got some thank yous coming in, which is what I was going to say. If you're watching, please let us know if you got value from today's conversation. Thank Julia for being on it. We appreciate all of the love. It's really, really welcomed and appreciated. And then we'll see you again, or at least I will. I'll be back next Monday before the virtual book tour summit. I'll be back. And then I will also be doing the virtual book tour summit later in the evening. Thank you all for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful evening. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.